After 4 years of owning this Jeep, it was time for a change. I have completely overhauled the suspension. I now have MetalCloak Rocklander suspension, 3.5 lift in the front, 4.5 lift in the rear, Rock Sport shocks, AntiRock sway bars, ProLignment drop bracket so it still rides like a stock vehicle, as close as you can get. Aftermarket drive shaft. I mean, everything the chassis and suspension needs to go to the next level, my Jeep now has. Can't wait to put this thing on the trails. Enjoy the video. This is the full installation video. Let's do a real measurement that we actually care about. Bottom of the spare tire. The bottom of the spare tire, this is one of the first things you would hit, is dead on 27 inches from the ground. And tell that one to my daughter. That's her softball number. But I also was 27 years old when I accepted Christ. That was a thing. I never really talked about it that much, but kind of just now put together that her softball number is the same year, or the same age I was. Pretty cool. We're going to measure to, we'll use the contour of the fender, back this up to the body of the Jeep. We'll measure along the wheel. That gives me 41.25 inches. We're going to set this flat along the contour of the fender, back it up to the Jeep, and I have, there you go, 41.75. I wasn't flat up against the tire. From the ground to the bumper is 31 1/16 of an inch. For other videos I've seen, you make these measurements and everybody measures from the fender well openings or something like that. Guys, it don't matter. It's going to lift the entire Jeep. I mean, I can measure from top of the hood, I can measure from top of the roof. I'm going to measure in spots that, one, are easy to get to and also are easy to duplicate. The measurements will be the same when I pull the Jeep out and put the Jeep back in, because I always park in the same spot. Pretty easy. Let's get to work. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I hope I have my hair cut before this video is over. I'm at 31.5 inches on the rear. That's a big jump. 46.25 right here. Front tire through the middle, I'm at 44.25. Yeah, 33.5. The measurements confirm my suspicions. The lift the dealer had installed only lasted about 3 years, and the rear springs had completely collapsed. Now it's time to rip out the dealership's installed 2.5 inch lift and replace it with a MetalCloak. Here we have all the stuff needed for the install: torsion bar, the arms, the rods here for the links. Here's the end links for those, lock nuts, the bushing it's going to ride in right here. Same kind of setup from the lowrider days right here is going to be my sway bar. So to begin, I got to unbolt it down here on both sides, then unbolt the mounts right here, drop the sway bar out of the way. The new sway bar is going to go in right here, so I'm probably have to grind the opening of the frame there a little bit to make some room for that bushing to go in on both sides. Then we'll hammer the sway bar through the hole right there. We'll take the links, drop them over here, connect them up right here. Pretty straightforward install. Here we go. Let's take the sway bar out and drop it. No matter how good you clean this thing, you always miss dirt and always go straight in the eyes. Now we just fish the old one out. All right, sway bar is off. All right, so you got to grind out this opening right here a little bit wider to fit the bushing in there. That's the next project. Got some of it out. I'm using a sanding disc. I think I need a rotary file. I got one down in the barn. Let me go get it. So, with that all cleaned up, the directions don't tell you this. Common sense. Spray paint this. You don't want it to rust. Alright, while I'm sanding the other side down, I'm going to let this side dry. Alright, now we'll take these inserts, which are labeled left and right, pound them in with a mallet. That's what it started to do right there. We're going to cut that off, and alright, I took my knife right here and I trimmed up the edges, so as it was going in, it was cutting, it was peeling this piece up, as I showed you earlier. Well, that made basically a little, like a hangnail right there, right? Thing's sticking out like a sore thumb. So I trimmed that off to make it back smooth again. And I try to take off the smallest amount I could because I don't want to make it, it's engineered to work a certain way. So if they wanted it to be smaller in the opening, they would have given it a smaller opening. So I'm thinking that's going to work. Let's go hammer it some more. If this don't work, I'll trim a little bit more off. Oh, Lordy, I'm wore out. But I believe it's in there. Let's go work on the other side. This is one that has not been beat up with a hammer yet. We're about to probably make this one look like the other side though. Here we go. So it's just a tight fit. I know I say this all the time, but I should have arms like Popeye by now. Good Lord. I don't know how. It's got to be genetics. I mean, this hammer is coming apart. That's how hard I'm hitting stuff. And this is all the time. Anyways, it's in. Enough complaining. Let's get back to work. Paperwork says have 3/4 of an inch sticking out of both sides. Well, I got 7/8 of an inch sticking out of both sides, so I went above and beyond. Wipe off some of this grease. Put black chassis grease on there, by the way. All right, take off the gloves that are contaminated with black grease, and now we're going to build up the arms. All right, just put the arm out there. And take as many sees. Now put it on there. All right, so the next thing I got to do, got the rods assembled. Make sure you put lock nuts on them. Remember, we made that mistake on the front sway bar. I put it together, realized I got to put lock nuts on, had to take it all back apart and fix that. So I got these in, I ran them all the way down. I'm gonna set these in the back seat of the Jeep though, because I am not ready. I got something else I'm working on the Jeep. So that's probably gonna be a day or two before I get to this part. But the idea, I gotta set it to where it's gonna measure the up and down travel, make sure you don't flip your sway, the arm. And I cover all this in the front video. If you can't tell, I'm getting tired. That hammer and that little insert in right there, that wore me out. I'm exhausted now. But I ain't got time to be tired. I got work to do, and I only got 2 days off to do this in, so gotta get back at it. Get it in. So that's a really tight fit. But I'm getting it in. So it's still gonna work. You can see right there how I have it misaligned. Once I get the lock nut down, I'll straighten it back out, and I'll show you that when I get done. And that is run all the way down. When I get done, I'm gonna figure out what to do with this ABS wire here. I may just leave it off like that, disconnected. I may leave it in a clamp. This shouldn't move. This should all just be fixed in one spot. All your articulations will be up here on the arm. So that down there ought to be fixed. It could possibly go that way a little bit. That'd be about it. I'm gonna play around with the movement on it and see how it works, determine if I need to change anything with the routing of this ABS wire. I mean, I can just build that in like that. There's a lot of options. We'll figure that out. So here is the sway bar rear installed. I got 12.5 inches of exposed rod here. No, not exposed. That's including what's behind these nuts here. All right, we are doing the rear of the MetalCloak Rocklander suspension. It's pretty much the same if you're doing a game changer. It's almost the same if you're doing the true dual rate. It is the same. You're just missing a couple components if you get that one. So technically, this is probably closer to the true dual rate, what I'm doing. Either way, let's get at it. I have position tires underneath the Jeep, catch it in case my jack stands fail. We're going to disconnect these shocks next. We're going to unhook the parking brake cable on both sides, lower it down, get the springs out. And then we'll put the new springs and all that stuff back in. So, and while I'm at this, we're actually going to rotate my tires. As you can see, I've already labeled where they're going to go. To remove the shocks, I just peeled this down, and then right there is where the head of the bolt was at. Ran it out with 18mm, able to drop it out of the way. Take the other side out right here, drop it on the ground. As you can see, I've already got both mine out. I forgot to film it. So there is a clamp right here with a 13mm bolt that holds these brake lines in here. That's what was holding me up. So we're going to take that out now. That's why we come down really slowly and carefully, and I started trying to feel around with what was bonding. Stop there because the driver's side, no, passenger side, is starting to look a little bit straight on that brake line. So that's getting tight. That's about all I'm gonna get out of that one. And the spring is loose, so. Now it's the passenger side isolator. I hate these things so much. Woo, I don't like these things. God, I don't like these things. I am panicking over nothing. Let's see if I can fit it in there now. Almost. So, I was not videoing. This is why these things are terrifying, because it just broke. Problem is, I still got another one on here. It is still under pressure. I don't know how in the world I'm going to get that thing apart. So I've jacked this thing up about as high as I can get it to go. Actually, I can get it to go. Problem is, I'm digging my bump stop up here. It's fine. I'll replace that thing if I have to. I'd rather do it this way than that thing kill me. Whew. Okay. Here we go, Sketch City. I'm coming to see you. Can I get this socket on there? All right then, well, it's one way to do it. All right, that got it. Now, we're gonna lower it back down easily because I'm gonna jack the Jeep up. That was extremely sketchy. So here's what I had to do. The spring compressor was here and it broke off. It just completely sheared the end of this thing off, ripped the nut off. Pieces of it are laying over here. There goes the end clamp right here. The nut and the washers flew off over that way somewhere. Yeah. There's that pin right there. It's supposed to hold that nut in. That sheared off. So, in order to lift it up, I couldn't get it up because I was trying to get the first spring in. So I took my stack of bump stops and I just set them all right there to have something to compress against. And I compressed that spring over there and got the tension off of the spring compressor, and I was able to get it out. That was sketchy. Oh Lord, if you hear, I don't know how much of this goes in the video. I spent 10 minutes talking about how sketchy this was before I even started. How I hated I was gonna have to use a spring compressor to get this thing going. And that was why I didn't want to do it, because God, I'm terrified of these things. But to be honest with you, it is probably 25-year-old spring compressor. God, I bought them things when I had my Camaro. I had that Camaro in the 90s. Whoo! Problem is, I find myself in a bind now. I got to figure out how to jack this side up and do the other one now. But it looks, at this point, I'm taking a break, walking away. I'm thankful that I'm alive. Praise the Lord above. I'm still here talking to you. That was sketchy. But I'm in a bit of a bind right now because I just broke a tool midway through a job that I'm gonna need. All right, I gotta do some figuring. Tomorrow. It is a new day. We're resuming work. I did not get as far as I wanted to yesterday, but at the end of the day, I had to go to Advanced Auto Parts and buy a new spring compressor. I have to compress the spring more. I am terrified of these things. And then I gotta make room for the isolator because it's not even in there yet. All right, another thing you're gonna have to do here is route these brake cables under this cross member. They're routed on top of it from the factory. So that way you have more room for droop without snapping these cables. This up in here, put the bolt in. I got the bolts in the shock down here. They're loose. I didn't tighten anything up. I got the bolt started here for the track bar, loose. Haven't tightened it up yet. Now I'm setting up the bump stops. Let me show you what I'm doing. What's up? At this moment, I'm having the same size tires. So I'm adding one bump stop to give me a little bit more restriction on my up travel. That should clear the fender going forward. So I got to paint this right here where I broke my spring compressor yesterday. All right, so everything is in. I go back, tighten down some of these nuts and stuff like that. The shocks aren't tightened down on the bottom yet. I had to adjust my track bar pretty amazing. I went from a 2.5 inch lift in the rear to a 4.5 inch lift in the rear. And that took 4 turns on my track bar to recenter my axle. Kind of surprised me. I didn't think it would take that much. But that being said, everything else in the install is done. I got to tighten my jam nut down there. I got to tighten these bolts up here. Go back and tighten my shock bolts. Let me recap what we did. We changed the shocks. We changed the springs. We rerouted the parking brake cable till it used to come over the top of that cross member right there, and now it comes on the bottom of the cross member down there. I bent the tabs for the brake lines over here. They were originally parallel, flat with the ground. I installed them and then bent them up, made them flat with the control arms. So that's another change. I don't remember if I filmed that or not, but I did make that change. In fact, I'll show you real quick. So that right there was parallel with the ground. It is now parallel, or slightly above parallel, with the control arm. That way, when the axle sags down like that, it doesn't snap your brake lines. All right, the rear is done. So now we are going to start on the front. There's a massive difference now in the front and the rear. That's going to be evened out when I put the front springs on. And obviously, I believe in time this lift's going to settle. It is really tall right now. All right, I had to stop and take a break. I am exhausted. This has been an absolutely massive undertaking to do all this much work and try to do it all in 2 days. Actually, it's ended up taking me 3. But wow, on top of all this, when I get done with this, we got a softball practice here at the house tomorrow. I haven't cut grass. This up here hadn't been cut yet this year. I've cut the ball field once, but I gotta go cut it again. It's high. Can't practice on it as high as the grass is. It'll mess everybody up. So I've got to at least cut the ball field. I'm probably going to cut at least a whole backyard. I had about 2.5 hours of time left to work, and then I got to get down there and work down there. And then I got to go back to work tomorrow to a job that actually pays money. It's interesting. I go to work tomorrow to actually get paid money because it takes money to make everything happen. So I'm stopped for a minute. I have not. You in my Jeep? That's what I'm hearing. There's a chicken in my Jeep. Chase, get her out of my Jeep. Anyways, I stopped for a minute. I haven't eaten all day, so I stopped to get me something to eat. I got me Dr. Pepper. I got me a Built Bar. What flavor of Built Bar do I have here? They don't have that many flavors right now. This is Brownie Batter Puff. Pretty good. I like the, most flavors I like they don't sell anymore. They got the cookie dough puff, which is really good. But anyways, I'm having this. I had me a bowl of cereal, and I'm having this. And then I'm getting back to work. So, frosted mini wheats and a protein bar. And I'm good to rock and roll. Probably won't have time to eat today. Hopefully tonight I can go get something to eat. Buy something somewhere. I definitely ain't gonna have time to cook. That's for sure. So, anyways, back to work. Alright, the rear is done. So now we are gonna start on the front. As the dog is pointing out here, make sure you chock your wheels and tires. Even though I got a parking brake set, I went ahead and chalked both sides. I have disconnected the sway bar. Right now I'm disconnecting the shocks. And I got an axle. I have a jack. Good Lord. I have a jack under the axle to catch it. In theory, I'm going to catch this thing when it falls out. Or the jack's going to catch it. I hope it does. Because if not, it's good the drown's going to catch it if Jack don't. There it goes. It just released. That's got to drop some more. Oh, I didn't take the track bar loose. Whoopsies. Let's go do that real quick too. Look up. This will be a 21mm on that. Yep, there it is. There's a flag nut on the back, I think. Yes, it is. If you, like me, have done the stabilizer flip with the MetalCloak steering, your track bars are 22mm. There we go. That one's loose too. Awesome. 18mm bolt up there, and then the shocks will drop out, and then I'm going to take the control arms off. Shocks out. see if it fits. Alright, so I had to jack this side up to lift this side over here droop enough to be able to get that spring in there. I finally got it. Now I gotta get my coil spring compressor out of there, which is another challenge. This is exhausting. I would highly recommend, if you're gonna do this, use a lift. It sucks doing this on the ground. I am beat. And I'm on day 2 of this. Now granted, I'm doing a lot of stuff at one time, so I'm not just doing a lift. But God, I'm wore out. Whew. Back to work. Running into a problem here. I'm literally so tired. I can't grip the handle of this thing to rotate it and not drop the jack, so I had to get me some super grip gloves. Ugh. You have different spacers, driver's side, passenger side, on the top for these. Well, if you're like mine, you have different spacers depending on your configuration, E-torque, non-E-torque, 3. There's an end to the spring here, right? That end's got to sit in the seat, and there's also an end to the bottom, and that's also got to sit in the seat. So you got to make sure all that stuff line up. The one up top rotates, so there's a label that faces out, and depending on which side of the Jeep you're on is which label you got facing out. That's how it goes. These are your old springs. All right, all that's lined up, so I can compress it up a little bit more, and then then I can drill out the holes for the shock. No, I've already done that. But I'll get caught up. It's all right. Let's just get this thing up in the air and evaluate where we're at. So at this point, you're going to notice the upper control arms are held in with screwdrivers. And there is a reason why. I am actually doing the drop brackets also. So I'm just putting those in there to hold them in place. The bolts are loosely installed on the back end. Once I get it up to a rod height, I'm going to drop the back end of the arms down and work them. So I'm going to finish all the other work just with screwdrivers in there, and then I'll tighten those up later. So you got to wait till you get upper rod height, then torque your bolts down. So you leave them loose, that way they can rotate freely until you get there. All right, there's your disclaimer. All right, so you gotta start off by putting all this stuff back together. Put this 10mm bolt in to hold this stuff in place. And you're putting this bracket in for your shock mount to move your shock to the outside edge over here. That's the first job. Then you start putting your spacers in and reposition your shock. Get that in now. Back it out just a hair. All right, the Rock Sport shocks are in with the relocation. This moves them outboard so that it lines up better for your articulation, having the shock more outboard. It's an improvement over the factory location. One thing I noticed though, this bolt is really close right here. So I'm guessing it was always that close. I just didn't pay attention to it. But yeah, so that bolt's really close. That's the way it said to put it on. So hopefully if that starts hitting the control arm, I'll have to drop the control arm, flip that bolt around the other way. That'll be a project for another day. Hopefully that don't happen though. Hoping this lines up and works just like it is. But I'm gonna keep an eye on that. This shock relocation, pretty easy install. I was able to get a replacement bolt out of the heat shield from the drop brackets, because you don't need heat shield no more and do the drop bracket. So now I had a replacement bolt from one I broke when I was installing this. Another thing not covering the directions, I bent this bracket that way a little bit because when you go to full droop, these brake lines get pretty tight. So bending that bracket allowed the brake line to point down more. I tried to bend this side over here up a little bit, but it didn't really work out so well. And I got to check how the front axle disconnect fits, because it was really tight when I was dropping it earlier, but I didn't have the shocks in. So maybe the shocks will limit the travel so that it won't pull that wire harness. If it does, I could do something different with the wiring harness for the front axle disconnect. We'll see as we get things put back together how it looks. All right, so at this point, I need to connect the track bar. I need to get it jacked up, put the front bolts in the control arms because I can't get the holes lined up. So I'm gonna jack it up, put the wheels and tires back on. Actually, I need to connect the sway bar probably now. It'd be easier to do that now. So I'm gonna do the sway bar first. Then I'm gonna jack it up, put the wheels and tires on. Then I'm hoping that gives me more maneuverability to work this axle back and forth a little bit to get the holes to line up. Also, I gotta set the track bar in to work it Jeep side to side on it. I feel a lot safer doing this with the vehicle not sitting on jack stands. So we're gonna put the wheels and tires on so I can do it that way. I took on a lot with this. This was a massive, I'm not just doing one mod to my Jeep. I'm doing like 6 or 7 mods at the same time, juggling in my head, keeping up all the stuff as I go. And it's a holiday weekend, which I didn't realize that. This is the first weekend I had where I could get a day off. And I go, hey, I can take me a 3-day weekend here. And yeah, I'm beat, guys. I'm beat. But anyways, wow, do all this individually. Don't try to do all this at one time, unless you got like a shop with a lift. That's probably fine. But man, me trying to do all this by myself, whew, lordy, I am wore out. That is for sure. But I'm near the finish line. I believe my goal is going to be to get the wheels and tires back on it, get the Jeep movable. I'm going to probably move it around the house a little bit. I still want to rotate the tires. I may not do that today. I may do some more work Tuesday. But I want to get it where I can move it around, reposition things, because I want to check all the bolts, because I've done a lot and I've been very exhausted while doing it. I've been making me a list on my dry erase board in the house of stuff I need to go back and recheck when I get done. I got to lock down all the lock nuts on the control arms. I got to tighten down all the control arms when I'm back to weight on wheels instead of being on jacks right now. And that's all stuff I got to do. But yeah, when I get done with this work, I got to cut the grass. I got to cut the ball field minimum. I'm probably cut the whole yard, and then I'm gonna just reposition the Jeep. And then Tuesday probably rotate tires. I don't think I'm gonna get to it today. I'm too exhausted already. So I gotta go back to work tomorrow. Yeah, and it's Bumblebee right there in my face. Anyways, I got work to do. All right, from under the Jeep, we're gonna remove the bolts that hold this in, goes that flag nut, remove that bolt, and then we're gonna put the countersink right here. Let's get at it. I have disconnected the control arms, and you'll see this little slot right here. So you're gonna slide that slot into the upper control arm mount, and then that's gonna hold the front side up. In the back, you're gonna put a little, take this little deal here. Yeah, I'm not going to tighten this up yet because you got to line all these other holes up and run the bolts through, but I want to snug it up. Not snug, but I want to get where there's not much play. Alright, so next you got to take the small bolt, small spacer, and put them in the upper control arm mount. We'll look at the picture, figure out which side the head goes on. The side of the head, the bolt head goes inboard, and the nut goes outboard. Okay, try to figure this out. Yeah, it's pretty tight. We've now got all the bolts in, so I believe at this point I can run them down. I'm going to double check my directions to make sure they're on my phone here. If you can hear the TV, I'm watching an Andy Griffith show. Now we will repeat on the driver's side, and then we'll be done. Alright, so as we're going in with the driver's side, tighten this one. Leave everything loose. Then you come back, tighten it all up once you get everything in. Problem I run into, this bolt here is now in backwards from how the pictures say, because there's no way to get the bolt in on this side. It's too close to the exhaust. So it'll still work, but I ran that bolt head on the outside. Every other thing I did, the bolt head's on the inside. As you can see through there over the skid plate, bolt heads are on the inside of that side over there. So I'll everything else will be bolt head inside, but that one there I had to flip it because the exhaust pipe was in the way. Other than that, it went in pretty good. I mean, you got to fight it, pry bars. I'm using screwdrivers, line the holes up. I got a big pry bar somewhere. No, here it is, right here. Got this big old pry bar here, and I'm prying with stuff, and I'm hammering stuff, and you know, you got to persuade this stuff to line up. But once you do all that, it goes in there. Not too bad. Now we'll hang the control arms. So I have a 3.5 inch lift in the front, so I'm using the middle hole. The other two holes are for a 2.5 and a 4.5 inch lift. This will keep the alignment good and supposedly help it driving down the road good. Although I may have to adjust my lower control arms to tweak the caster a little bit, but we'll figure that out later. So all the stuff is in. These are still loose, they're just snugged up, but I got to get the front bolt in up here, and I got to put some weight on it or jack it up some more so I can reach. Also, you don't use the heat shield when you put it back together because you lose where it goes. So I was able to replace that bolt I broke right there. That worked out pretty good. Need another 10mm bolt. And also, so you don't use the heat shields, but also I've noticed it says reuse the stock hardware. Well, maybe yours is different. Mine came with these little T-bolts that went through right here. Maybe some Jeeps came with an actual nut inside there. Mine came with this little clamp. That is called flag nut. That's a flag nut. Mine came with a flag nut, and I put the flag nut back on there. I was worried about it clearing the control arm here, but I think the control arm's going to be fine because it'll hit the bump stops before it ever gets to there. So yeah, but anyways, we're gonna start working on the other side. Then I got to put some weight on the vehicle and try to get the front bolts to line up for the front control arms. I got to tilt the axle back a little bit to get that to line up, and I think from there I'll be in good shape.
And he's going to draw another one here. That's his 25th.
All right, I've done my test drive. I've tweaked the alignment. I've tweaked the positioning, the track bars for positioning of the axle side to sides. Now I'm kind of going back and looking everything over, and I rotate my tires. That'll be the final step of this install. Well, I got to come back and do that drive shaft. I still got to do that, but as far as this stuff goes, that's the final step. I'll do the drive shaft once I put everything back together. Looking over all these bolts, make sure I got everything tight. I didn't miss anything. I didn't leave anything loose, anything dangling. That's the goal right now. All right, completing the 3.5-inch lift. Got to swap out the drive shaft. The factory one in the front is not going to take the new lift at 3.5 inches. You see there, it's a Nepco end. Number is 5221. I mean, that's the same things Adams uses. I swear, I think this is Adams drive shaft. They just don't have the labels on it. I wonder if MetalCloak just made a deal with them and Adams makes the drive shafts for them, because that's exactly what it looks like. Well, the factory puts in a ton of blue Loctite. That is a lot. Hopefully don't fall on my face, that'd be bad. I don't know if you see, I have to take all these bolts out here, so I'm not really able to show you that very well. But the reason why we're changing this is because this flange right here is all beat up, and that's just from a 2.5-inch lift. Because you see it drooping now, it's beating that flange up. With a 3.5-inch lift, this is going to be even worse. It's out. Got to take a socket, and I got to pull that nut out right there. That'll be fun too. All right, the nut came out with either 1.25 inch or 32 millimeter. It's like about the same size. Now I got to tap with a hammer right here and try to knock this housing off with a skid plate in the way. Yay. With the housing off right here, you can see the front of the transfer case exposed. So I got a new yoke to go on its place. So we're going to install that now. So the spline end will go on the splines up here. It is not keyed, so it don't matter how it goes on. All right, that is on. Put some blue Loctite on this nut and then put the nut on there. No, the JKs, you had an O-ring right here. This one, it don't say to put anything on there, but I think you're supposed to at least put some black Loctite on there. That's what Adams drive shaft says, so we're gonna do that just to be safe. I use black RTV, not black Loctite. What? Don't record that. That's just a drive shaft hitting the button. Oh, looking right at the sun. That ain't no good. This right here is where I'm tightening down with a 15 millimeter socket wrench. I've already walked using my calibrated wrist at 18 foot-pounds. Ah, I just busted my knuckle. That's fun. I love busting my knuckles. Makes it look like I've done something all day. This is the new. We installed that new yoke right there. So you get a double U-joint style right here, which will help it flex more. When it comes down here, you got more travel. Well, you got more travel with the suspension. And now with this tube being smaller, it won't hit the sides as much. It won't bind back up there at the transfer case like it was. No binding up here at the transfer case because you got double U-joint up there. The old drive shaft has been removed. This is the factory yoke. which was pulled out and replaced. As you can see here, this is one reason why you had to replace it. See how this thing's all beat up right here? That was the worst one. There's another one over here. It's also beat up right there. So even with my suspension lift being 2.5 inch that I bought from the dealership, it's still bound up. So even though everybody says 3 inch, I'm gonna say even if you do 2.5 inch, you probably need to look at upgrading your drive shaft, any kind of heavy usage. It only had 1 or 2 dings on that little ring right here, but it had a couple. So clearly my drive shaft, at some point with me flexing out over ruts or something like that, and me three-wheeling my Jeep, I have bent this flange right here, and that's not good. You don't want to bend that. All right, this is going to settle down as it works a little bit. The suspension articulates. It's going to settle and get lower. A bit. Put it forward. Turn it a little bit. Pull down here on the driveway. Stop and get out. Double check underneath. Make sure I didn't miss anything loose. All right, so I did a walk around after I moved it. Everything looks to be hooked up. I'll take it down the driveway, see how it feels. If it feels good enough, I'll take it down the road. If it don't, I just come back up, park it, take the Yukon. I got to ride in town, get some dog food. We'll see. With me moving the track bar over, I'm afraid I'm going to have to adjust the steering. So steering wheel's turned to the right, so I need to lengthen the drag arm. I got to lengthen the drag arm, make it a little bit longer. So I'm not going to drive this to this town. I'm going to take it back, park it, because now I know I got to fix that. Right here, if I go straight, steering wheel is going to be to the right. So that's about straight right there. So I got to lengthen that arm. May not look it to the naked eye, but the rear end is a little bit off-centered. And almost to see it, this is looking at the right side. Come over here, we'll look at the left side. This is why you do test rides. So I put them on, did a quick test ride, and then I'll show you what I found. All right, so the sway bar end link, it's gonna be kind of hard to measure the end link itself. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna measure the arm. So sway bar arm to the tire, 2 1/8 inches. So I'm gonna say it's 2 5/8. But either way, we got to add a lot. So we need to add about 1/4 inch to the track bar. But either way, we'll drop the track bar down, back this off, rotate it out, and lengthen the track bar. And add another 1/4 inch to the length, which I've already done this once, but I didn't add enough length to it. So we're gonna add some more. So now that I got a measurement, I know how much I need to get to clear this side over here. So let's do it. Gotta rock the Jeep here to get the bolt loose. Now this is going to fall out and hit me in the lap. Oop. It went a half turn anyway because I went the wrong way. I went too far. All right, so right now I've got 2 3/8 on both sides. I got 2 3/8. So anytime you change suspension components away from how they were designed to operate from the factory, you alter the way this vehicle is designed to operate. So imagine this socket is your axle. Make it to where it's about the same size. This socket here is your axle, right? So as you lift the Jeep up like that, and this connected rod, it's actually going to pull the axle over this way. So now you got to lengthen that track bar to push the axle back center. That is what you're doing with that track bar. That's the adjustment you're going for. And this is because you've altered the geometry of the suspension past the way the engineers at Jeep designed it. They designed this suspension to sit at the certain level they made it at. I've went back and added MetalCloak springs to it, which lifted it up. Therefore, that caused the axle to shift this way, out of alignment with the vehicle. So I had to lengthen that track bar. And this is for the rear. It gets even more complicated in the front. I had to do the same thing there. In the front, I lengthened the exact same track bar. Let me get on here so I can show you. Here's your track bar here in the front. I lengthened it as well because I had the exact same issue. The problem is when I lengthened it, this right here is your drag arm from your steering box to the right front tire, then connects into this tie rod over here. Whenever I lengthened that bar, that made this too short and the steering wheel was cocked sideways. So I had to then come back and lengthen the drag bar to straighten the steering wheel back out. Did not have to touch the toe. The toe was set. I had Black Bear Off-Road set the toe for me. So my toe is set, but I did have to lengthen the drag arm to straighten the steering wheel out. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Jeep's completely overhauled. This is phase 2. Just like phase 1, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna use it, I'm gonna learn it, see if I need to make any changes, any tweaks I may need to do. The next big plan is gonna be right here in the front. Again, a year or two away, I'm gonna change the 37-inch tires and re-gear to 488 and add a Dana 44 in the front. Probably an Ultimate 44, maybe a Pro Rock. See what kind of deals I can find. Or if I can find a Rubicon takeoff, I'll do that. But either way, I got probably 2 years to figure that out. In the meantime, we're going to use it at phase 2, just like I did in phase 1. Learn what I like, what I don't like, what changes I need to make. That's what led me to the changes I end up doing. So, hope you enjoyed the video.